Welcome to the podcast, Claim Your Excellent Life, with your host, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, where she helps professional women learn how to be happy. Suzanne will teach you how to do this through building high self-esteem, relaxation and calm, and good, healthy relationships. Tune in every week as Suzanne shares effective strategies to help you claim your excellent life with happiness techniques, self-esteem building exercises, relationship tips, and relaxation information. Make sure to head over to dawningvisions.com to subscribe to the newsletter to receive your keys to happiness, as well as other useful free gifts for you.
In today's episode of Claim Your Excellent Life, we are going to talk about Dr. Gabor Mate's information, which he has received from many articles that he has read through the years, as well as his family practice, the work he's done with people in addictions, with HIV, and with serious mental health problems, as well as palliative care. Today we're going to learn about how emotions affect our cognitive functioning. This is a very, very important subject for those of you who have children, are thinking about having children, work with children, or around children. Because learning and emotions are neurophysiologically connected. That means that they are connected through our neurology. So today, when you look at the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, number 5, you'll find that almost every single normal emotion has been medicalized, given a label. That is so that it can be used for prescribing medications and for insurance companies to reimburse those who practice mental health. That is true. However, there's a big problem that we're having today with our kids in their behavioral and in their learning and in their emotional dysregulation. And it's very important for us to understand how this all works so that maybe we can be more present for the kids who are in our lives, especially the very, very young ones. Because the brain develops starting in the womb, and then it grows very, very quickly over the first few years of life. So it's very important in terms of the environment that we give our kids to build safe attachments. That means feeling safe with the people in their lives, most especially the parents and the adults in their lives. Gabor had talked about this gentleman, Antonio Damascius, a neuroscientist who published a book called Descartes' Error. And this is what Damascius has said. We used to assume that learning cognition was a separate entity, separate process from emotionality. In Latin, Homo sapiens means the man that knows. So we're assuming an intellectual capacity when we speak of Homo sapiens. Cognition is actually something that rests on the edifice of emotion. So cognition is actually our emotional being. Our emotional being is connected to our visceral states, which means our organs, our liver, our heart, our lungs, all our internal organs. And the mind and body itself is an organizational entity that is bringing information in that is coming from the outside as well as the inside. However, the brain receives many more messages from the inside of the body than it does from the outside of the body. Now, one of the problems that we have here in America and the developed world at large, I imagine, is that we are no longer paying attention to what our gut feelings are telling us. We live in a society where people are less and less connected to their gut feelings. There's less engagement with the external world, even though we are externally focused. We are externally focused in a less efficient manner because of that disconnect. I know that several of you have probably gone into a store and had a feeling that maybe you should have bought that thing that was there and you did not. And when you went back, it was no longer there. Or maybe you're one of these people who In the back of their mind, you heard yourself say, I really shouldn't say that thing. And then out it comes, and yeah, there's fireworks with whomever, usually your partner. Didn't appreciate whatever that was that you said. However, we ignore our gut feelings at our own peril. It is what happens in the society that is cut off from our gut feelings. There's something internal that knows, that is so much stronger than anything our intellect is telling us. In the contest between the internal knowledge and external knowledge, 99% of the time the internal knowing will be accurate and the intellectualization and rationalization will be inaccurate. This is why we hypnotists do hypnotism, because we understand that the intellect gets in the way and we are unable to help our clients to put those things together that they need to, that's in their subconscious, unconscious mind, their emotional mind, if you will. Now, these are the same lower neural edifices of reason. They're the same ones that regulate the processing of emotions and feelings along with the body's functions necessary for the organism's survival. Now, this is what we have to understand. We have this diagnosis in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual called ADD or ADHD. In the U.S., there are at least 3 million kids receiving stimulant medication for ADD, ADHD. In Canada, the prescribing of the stimulant medication has gone up 43% in the last 5 years, let alone the hundreds of thousands of kids that are receiving antipsychotic medications. Not to control psychosis. They don't have psychosis, but to control their behaviors. And we do now know that the gray matter of their brain does not develop as much material due to these medications, and that gets involved in lessening their ability for impulse control and for emotional regulation. So we're adding insult to injury by giving the kids this stuff. So we need to understand something here. A child is not acting out because they want to be a pain in your butt or make your life miserable. The child is acting out because they don't have the language to tell you what is going on. It's not okay to isolate the kids. It's not okay to restrain the kids. It's not okay to tell them they're stupid. It's not okay to do any of those things. The kid does not understand what they're doing wrong. And if you notice, you tell them the same instructions over and over again and they're doing the same negative behavior, it never stops. You need to stop asking why they're not getting it and ask yourself why you're not getting it. There is a different thing that these children need. Now, we're going to talk about the prefrontal cortex. It has 9 important functions. It's part of the brain that separates us from other animals. It regulates the body itself. It regulates communication with others. It's responsible for emotional balance. It allows us response flexibility, which means that if you say something to me that might upset me, instead of reacting by screaming back at you, I can actually say, what is happening for you that you said that to me? I don't have to take it personally, and neither do you. If someone says stuff like that to you, that might hurt you in some way. It provides empathy. It regulates emotions. It monitors fear. Something in the prefrontal cortex will override the fear and say, okay, calm down. You can handle this. It takes care of your intuition and also your morality. Gabor says that all of these can be helped through mindfulness, which means meditation and being mindful of what you're doing from moment to moment. 7 of them are set up by nurturing parents, although Gabor seems to think that all 9 of them are actually set up by nurturing parenting. He says that the reason that so many children are having so many problems these days is because the parenting environment has become so stressed that parents are no longer able to provide the environment in which these functions can develop properly. That's why we have an epidemic. It's not bad parenting, it's not bad drinking water, it's not some genetic disease that's spreading. Genetics take hundreds, thousands of years to actually shift and change. So there's a lot of articles that he gave, but I would like to just go to this whole idea of the 4 ways that we have to respond when we're feeling stressed out, by being threatened or even insulting our dignity as a human being. Here we go. Number 1 is walk out to escape. 2 is to fight, stand up to the bully. 3 is to seek help from others if someone's around to help out. 4 is escape by tuning out, nature-given capacity that we have to escape overriding stress. Tuning out is what ADD people do. Hello, they tune everybody out, and so do angry teenagers. What Gabor didn't know was that the human brain itself has the circuits in the prefrontal cortex that develops under the very early environment. For example, your vision is not going to develop if you don't see for 5 years, no matter how much light there is, because it takes light waves to promote the development of the visual circuits in your brain. With emotional self-regulation circuits that aren't functioning that well these days, with attentional circuits that are not functioning, impulse regulation circuits and stress circuits, it's the same thing. Just like light is needed for vision to develop, the right environment is needed for those circuits to develop normally. The physiology of the brain, the oxygenation of the brain, for the neurotransmitters to be made, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, GABA, all that stuff that gives us emotional well-being. These are the circuits that regulate them. It all depends on the environment that we're raised in. Most of the brain development happens after our birth, but we also know that some of the development happens before the birth. So the environment during pregnancy also has an impact on the child's brain development. The more stressed women are, the more the children are going to be adversely affected. This is an interesting study I want to share with you. Looking at the preponderance of autism and other childhood conditions, there was a study that was done after 9/11. It looked at the stress hormones of 1-year-olds whose parents had suffered post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of 9/11 during pregnancy. These children had abnormal stress hormone levels. This showed that those kids had been negatively affected by their mother's stress, which means that they'll be more prone to addiction, behavioral problems, and learning difficulties. Because too much cortisol shrinks the hippocampus of the brain, which is part of the brain responsible for retaining memory as well. A study out of the University of British Columbia in 2012 looked at genetic functioning. Genes are turned on and off by the environment. We call this epigenetics. Bruce Lipton talks about this a lot in his books and his lectures. Even if people have certain genes that predispose them to addictions, if they're brought up in nurturing environments, these genes are turned off, which means they won't become addicted. Now, what we're looking at here is that the architecture of the brain is constructed by an ongoing process that begins before birth. It continues into adulthood and either establishes a sturdy or fragile foundation for all health, learning, and behavior that follows. The interaction of the genes and environment literally shapes the circuitry of the brain and is influenced by the mutual responses of the adult-child relationships, particularly during those early childhood years. So the key here is mutual adult-child relationships. If we have a calm, non-depressed, emotionally attuned parent, and on the other extreme, you have a parent that abuses and traumatizes the child. Gabor noticed that in 12-year experience working in Vancouver's downtown east side, he never had a patient that had not experienced abuse as a child. So the people that our government are jailing are individuals who've been traumatized as children. Now, between the calm, emotionally attuned parent and what they offer themselves when they're doing mindfulness, and the abusive parent that acts out their own trauma on their children, we have a whole range. That range is moving more towards stress because parents no longer have the support that they used to have with the extended family, tribe, the village. If a mother's depressed, for example, or a father's overworked, that will have plenty of impact on the child. These are not learned behaviors we're talking about here, people. We're talking about emotionally based coping mechanisms that develop. It's one way the brain protects itself from stress. Another way is that the brain protects itself from stress is to go into emotional shutdown, not being aware of feelings. And if people are not able to feel their feelings, guess what? They're not able to learn so well. If people are so stressed out, that they are not feeling validated by the world and they disconnect themselves, they learn how to dissociate. So people totally shut down emotionally. And shutting down emotionally is what stops the learning. Because even though you're shutting down to protect yourself, to grow, you need vulnerability. The word vulnerability comes from Latin, which means wounded. Nothing grows when it isn't vulnerable. A crustacean animal like a crab cannot grow in a hard shell. It has to molt and be made soft and vulnerable. And the same thing happens with children. They shut down emotionally. They have difficulty learning, especially from negative experiences. So keep repeating the same stuff over again, despite the negative consequences, never learning a thing from it. So if you told him 1,000 times and he's still doing it, then who has the learning problem here? Clearly, we have to do is find out what's going on with that child. The third way is through emotional detachment from a relationship, especially from relationships that threaten you. So a lot of kids detach from adult relationships by default. They connect to other kids. The result is that learning also stops because you need curiosity, you need to be vulnerable, and when someone doesn't care about something, guess what? It's boring and all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore. You learn from trial and error, but you need to be vulnerable to learn from it, because if it doesn't work out, you'll be sad about it. When you don't feel sad, you'll not learn from the negative experiences. Again, you'll say, I don't care. Give up. People learn through attachment. Through attachment, you want to emulate from them. You want to learn from them, and that's fine. So the technological problem doesn't exist. We have an attachment problem here. It means that these kids are not learning from adults that could tell them what life is about. They're learning from immature kids. So what do we need to do about this? We need to be there for our kids. We need to ask the question as to what is going on with them, why they'd be so upset. We need to be willing to ask those questions of them in a loving and nurturing way, and give them the space and the time to respond. So perhaps you can form a better attachment with a child. Because I can tell you this, punishing them is not going to help. They need to feel safe. They need to have a safe environment in which to learn and to grow. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to learn. And that's what we need to understand here. If you don't feel emotionally safe, you either freeze or flight or fight apparatus is engaged. And when that flight or flight mechanism is engaged, they cannot learn. I hope that you found this as informative as I did. If you want the full teaching, I did it on my Facebook page, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck. Today, July 21st. And it will be right up there. As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. If you have enjoyed Claim Your Excellent Life, we'd really appreciate it if you go over to iTunes and give it a 5-star review. If you have found Claim Your Excellent Life to be helpful to you, and maybe even life-altering with the information that we have shared here, and to allow us to continue this work, which we really do enjoy doing for you, you can sponsor us at patreon.com. That's spelled P as in Paul, ATREON as in Nancy.com. Again, that's P as in Paul, AT as in Tom, REON as in Nancy.com, where there's a few different levels of sponsorship that you can choose from to help us to continue doing this work. We thank you for any assistance that you are able to give us.
Thank you for listening to the podcast, Claim Your Excellent Life, with your host, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, where she helps professional women learn how to be happy. Suzanne teaches you how to do this through building high self-esteem, relaxation and calm, and good, healthy relationships. Tune in every week as Suzanne shares effective strategies to help you claim your excellent life with happiness techniques self-esteem building exercises, relationship tips, and relaxation information. Make sure to head over to dawningvisions.com to subscribe to the newsletter to receive your keys to happiness, as well as other useful free gifts for you.